Okay, so I installed my lower counter shaft in my NV4500. What I did was I had to install the front counter shaft bearing cup, the 102910. I ended up buying, I had an old Lyle set of bearing drivers, but I ended up getting this Maddox set. It's a 63261. I'll put the numbers and everything in the description. So I used the 72 millimeter to drive that in, and then what it recommends in the book is then you put that into the bearing cup, so that when you go to put the shaft in, you're not damaging that and you got something to hammer on. So I did that, and then what I did to put the lower bearing in, was I ground out the old bearing race and used that to pound it in with the driver like that into the shaft. The book says to use a press. I didn't have a press, so that's what I did. So then putting it on the high side, you can see the upper part of the shaft is much longer. So the upper bearing, which is a 501349, I did the same thing. Took the lower part of the bearing, took the race from the bearing, ground it out with the Dremel to size it out a little bit so I could slip it on there. But you can see I was still away from the top of the shaft. So I had gotten before, when I did the bushings on my Jeep, I changed out the bushings on the leaf springs, and I had bought a 1.25" T, and you can see where I grinded out all the threads and everything so it would slip on. So what I did was slip this on so it lined up with the bearing, and then slip that on over it, and then was able to, I didn't want to hammer on it just like that, so I took that and put it on. I put the whole thing on the ground and put a 2x4 under the case so that I didn't damage the case or anything while pounding on it. That way I saved the race and everything. Then we lubed the bearings. I did some research on the recommended oil, and everything I came up with is Redline MT85 seemed like the best one, so that's what we're doing everything with. So I lubricated all the bearings before I put them in. Also, if you don't have one, I recommend getting a drilling hammer. It's better than just a ball peen when you're doing stuff like this. It hits harder and less blows. So hopefully that makes sense, give you an idea of what tools to use, because I didn't have enough tubing to do it. So having this T around worked out perfect to give me the spacing there to get down to it with the bearing race on it. Didn't have to do that on the upper one. On the front one, all I had to do was take the race and a bearing driver and pound it in on the ground. I supported that when I pounded it in with a 2x4. I didn't put a 2x4 in there because we had the bearing driver in there to support it, and I started thinking about, if I did a 2x4, the way the shaft is, it might have dug into the 2x4, and then the bearing would have been touching the 2x4 at the bottom. So the aluminum was better to protect the lower bearing while you're doing the upper bearing there. So that's what I came up with. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll be posting more. Thanks.